Ladies and gentlemen, there is too much noise in the world today. Everywhere you turn, someone has an opinion about who you should be, what you should do, and how you should live. But let me tell you something, your life is not up for public debate. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need approval to become the person God has called you to be. The greatest battles you will ever fight are not with the world, but within yourself. That's why you must learn to focus on yourself. Tune out the distractions. Stop worrying about who is watching you and who is talking about you, because at the end of the day, their words do not define you, your actions do. Some of you are wasting time explaining your dreams to people who were never meant to understand them. Let me remind you, when God puts a vision in your heart, He does not always make it clear to everyone else. So stop looking for their approval. Stay silent. Work hard. Keep pushing forward. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. Jesus Himself stayed silent in moments when others tried to provoke Him. Why? Because He knew His purpose. He knew that words would not prove anything, only action would. And today that lesson remains the same. When you focus on yourself, you stop comparing, you stop competing, and you start transforming. And when you stay silent, you give God room to work in your life. The world may not notice at first, but in time they will see the fruits of your labor. So my message to you today is simple: trust the process, stay silent, and keep your focus on God's plan for you. Because when the time is right, He will make sure your light shines so bright that no one can ignore it. May God bless you, and may you walk in purpose and power. Amen. There comes a time in every person's life when they must decide, will they continue to live according to the expectations of others, or will they take responsibility for their own growth? This is not an easy choice, because the world constantly pressures us to seek approval, to measure our progress against someone else's journey, to wait for permission before we move forward. But let me tell you something, no one is coming to push you toward your destiny. No one is going to hand you success, wisdom, or purpose. Your growth is your responsibility, and until you accept that, you will remain stagnant. It is easy to blame others for where we are in life. We blame our past, our circumstances, the people who doubted us, the ones who hurt us. But growth does not happen when we stay stuck in blame. Growth happens when we decide that no matter where we started, no matter what has been done to us, we are responsible for what happens next. You cannot control how the world treats you, but you can control how you respond. Think of a tree. When a tree is planted, it does not choose the soil it is placed in. It may be rich and fertile, or it may be rocky and dry, but regardless of its environment, that tree has one mission: to grow. It must push its roots deeper to find water. It must stretch toward the light. It does not wait for perfect conditions. It does not complain about where it was planted. It simply grows. In the same way, your circumstances do not determine your growth. Your mindset does. Some of the greatest people in history came from the most difficult backgrounds. They had every reason to quit, every reason to make excuses, but they didn't. They took responsibility for their lives, and in doing so, they changed the world. But here's the truth: growth is not comfortable. It requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. It requires a willingness to be uncomfortable, to break old habits, to step into the unknown. Some people will avoid growth because it means letting go of the past. They hold on to pain, to anger, to bitterness, thinking that those things protect them, but in reality, those things chain them down. You cannot move forward while carrying the weight of your past. Growth also requires silence. Too many people talk about what they are going to do, but never take action. They announce their plans to the world, waiting for applause, but they never put in the work. Talking does not bring results. Action does. If you truly want to grow, stop telling everyone about it and start doing it. Let your progress speak for itself. Another obstacle to growth is comparison. In today's world, it is easy to look at someone else's success and feel like we are falling behind. But understand this: your journey is yours alone. You are not in competition with anyone but yourself. The only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday. When you focus on your own growth, you stop worrying about who is ahead of you. You stop looking sideways and you start looking forward. Taking responsibility for your growth also means seeking wisdom. Too many people think they know everything, and that is why they never improve. But the wise are always learning. They listen more than they speak. They surround themselves with people who challenge them, who inspire them, who push them to be better. They do not let pride keep them from growing. And let me tell you something else. Growth is a lifelong process. You will never reach a point where you have learned enough, where you have become so successful that you can stop improving. The moment you stop growing, you start dying. Every day is an opportunity to learn, to evolve, to become more of the person God created you to be. So today I challenge you, stop waiting for someone to save you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop making excuses. Look in the mirror and take responsibility for your own growth. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can change your life is you. The choice is yours. Will you remain the same, or will you rise up and grow into the person you were meant to be? Silence is one of the most misunderstood qualities in the world today. We live in a time where people believe that being loud means being strong, that the one who speaks the most has the most power. But true strength is not found in noise. It is found in discipline, in restraint, in the ability to control your words rather than letting them control you. Silence is not a weakness, it is a weapon. It is a sign of wisdom, self-control, and confidence. Many people feel the need to constantly prove themselves, to argue, to defend their every move. They think that if they do not respond to criticism, if they do not react to every insult, they will be seen as weak. But the truth is, the loudest person in the room is often the weakest. They are the ones ruled by emotion, easily shaken by what others say, desperate for attention and validation. A truly strong person does not need to announce their strength. They do not need to fight every battle. They choose their words carefully and know that silence often speaks louder than any argument ever could. Look at the greatest leaders in history, the people who truly left an impact. They were not reckless with their words. They did not waste energy on meaningless debates or proving themselves to people who would never understand their vision. Instead, they let their actions speak. They understood that silence has power. It unsettles those who expect a reaction. It forces people to reflect. And it creates an air of mystery and confidence that cannot be shaken. Silence also protects your energy. When you are constantly reacting to the opinions of others, constantly explaining yourself, constantly trying to be heard, you are wasting valuable time and effort that could be used for something greater. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every critic deserves a response. Sometimes the best thing you can do is remain silent, focus on your growth, and let your success do the talking. One of the greatest examples of this can be seen in Jesus himself. When he was falsely accused, mocked, and beaten, he did not fight back with words. He did not waste time defending himself to people who had already made up their minds. He remained silent because he knew his purpose. He knew that his actions would speak far louder than anything he could say. And in that silence, there was strength beyond measure. This is something we can all learn from. Too often, we allow our emotions to dictate our words. We get caught up in arguments, in proving our worth, in reacting to negativity. But when you are confident in who you are, when you trust in God's plan for your life, you do not need to explain yourself to anyone. You do not need to engage in every battle. There is power in walking away, in staying silent, in letting your life speak for itself. Silence also teaches patience. It allows you to listen, to observe, to gain wisdom before speaking. Those who speak too quickly often regret their words. But those who take time to think, who allow silence to guide them, are the ones who make the wisest decisions. There is a reason why the Bible says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because strength is not in how fast you can respond, but in how well you can control your response. There will always be people who misunderstand you. There will always be critics, doubters, and those who try to bring you down. But your job is not to convince them of your worth. Your job is to remain focused, to move in silence, to work hard without seeking attention, and trust that in the end, the truth will always reveal itself. The world will tell you that you need to be loud to be noticed, that you need to argue to prove your point, that you need to react to every challenge. But the truth is, the strongest people are those who know when to speak and when to remain silent. They do not waste words. They do not seek unnecessary battles. They move with purpose, confidence, and wisdom. So today, choose silence over noise. Choose wisdom over reaction. Choose strength over weakness. Because the person who can control their tongue, who can stay silent in the face of chaos, is the one who holds the real power. So often, people look for God in loud, dramatic moments. They expect Him to speak through thunder to shake the heavens, to announce His presence in a way that cannot be ignored. But the truth is, God does His greatest work in the quiet. He moves in the stillness, in the moments when no one is watching, when everything seems silent, when it feels like nothing is happening. And yet, beneath the surface, He is preparing something greater than we can imagine. Think about how a seed grows. You do not see the roots pushing deeper into the soil. You do not hear the transformation happening underground. But in time, that seed will break through, and what was once unseen will become visible. This is how God works in our lives. Before we ever see the results, before we see His plan come to life, He is working in the quiet. He is strengthening our roots, shaping us, preparing us for what is to come. But the problem is, we often mistake silence for absence. When we do not hear God, we assume He is not there. When we do not see immediate change, we assume nothing is happening. We live in a world that teaches us to expect instant results, to demand quick answers, to always be moving and doing. But God does not work on human timelines. He does not rush His plans. He works in the quiet, in the waiting, in the moments when we feel forgotten. Look at Moses. He spent 40 years in the desert before God called him to lead Israel. Look at David. He was anointed as king, but spent years tending sheep, facing battles, and waiting before he took the throne. Even Jesus spent 30 years in preparation before His 3-year ministry began. Why? Because God works in the quiet. He refines, He strengthens, He teaches, and He shapes us in ways we cannot always see. The quiet seasons of life are not wasted seasons. They are the most important seasons. They are where God does His deepest work. When things are silent, when doors seem closed, when prayers seem unanswered, is when faith is truly tested. Will we trust Him even when we cannot see the outcome? Will we believe He is working even when everything feels still? So many people give up in the quiet. They think that because they do not see immediate results, God must not be doing anything. But what they do not realize is that the quiet is where He builds the foundation. It is where He teaches patience, strengthens character, and prepares us for the blessings to come. If we rush the process, if we refuse to trust Him in the stillness, we miss the depth of what He is doing. Even in nature, the most powerful forces work in silence. The ocean's tides shift without a sound. The sun rises each morning without an announcement. The most beautiful transformations happen quietly, the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, the night turning into day, the seasons changing. If God can move the universe in silence, do you not think He is working in your life the same way? But the quiet is not just where God works. It is also where we can hear Him most clearly. The world is filled with noise, distractions, opinions, endless voices telling us what to do. But God speaks in the stillness. When Elijah stood on the mountain waiting for God, there was a mighty wind, but God was not in the wind. There was an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. There was fire, but God was not in the fire. And then there was a still small voice, and that was where God was. If you want to hear from God, you must be willing to embrace the quiet. You must be willing to step away from the noise, to seek Him in prayer, to sit in stillness and listen. So many people say they cannot hear God, but they never stop long enough to listen. They fill their lives with distractions, with constant movement, with endless talking. But God is not found in the chaos. He is found in the quiet. So if you are in a season of waiting, if life feels silent, if it seems like nothing is happening, do not be discouraged. That silence is not empty. It is full of God's presence. He is working even when you cannot see it. He is moving even when you cannot hear it. Your job is not to rush the process, not to fight the stillness, but to trust that He is doing something greater than you can imagine. God works in the quiet. And when the time is right, what he has been building in silence will be revealed for all to see. But until then, trust the process. Trust the silence, because the greatest miracles often begin in the moments when everything seems still. There is a weight that so many people carry every single day, the weight of control, of trying to manage everything, of trying to make sense of every situation, of holding on to things they were never meant to hold. Worry, fear, stress, anxiety, these things creep in when we try to take matters into our own hands instead of surrendering them to God. But here is the truth. The more we try to control, the more we struggle. The more we hold on, the heavier the burden becomes. Peace is not found in trying to figure everything out. Peace is found in letting go and letting God. Letting go is one of the hardest things to do because it requires trust. It means stepping back and admitting that we are not in control, that we do not have all the answers, that we cannot always fix or change things. And for many people, that is terrifying. They want to know how everything will turn out. They want to see the full picture. But faith does not work that way. Faith is trusting God even when we do not understand. It is believing that He is working even when everything feels uncertain. So many people live their lives filled with fear because they are trying to control things that were never meant to be in their hands. They try to control the future, but the future belongs to God. They try to control other people, but only God can change hearts. They try to control outcomes, but only God knows what is truly best. The more we fight for control, the more we lose peace. But when we surrender, when we say, God, I give this to you, that is when true peace enters. Letting go does not mean giving up. It does not mean we stop working, stop trying, or stop caring. It means we release the burden of trying to do it all on our own. It means we trust that God's plan is greater than ours. It means we stop striving in our own strength and start resting in His. Think about a person drowning in water. The more they panic, the more they sink. But when they relax and trust the water to hold them, they float. This is what it means to let go and let God. When we stop struggling, stop fighting, stop trying to control everything, we realize that God is already holding us. He has always been in control. He has always had a plan. We just need to trust Him. Letting go also means releasing the past. Too many people are holding on to past mistakes, past hurts, past disappointments. They replay old conversations, dwell on things they cannot change, and allow their past to define them. But you cannot move forward if you are still holding on to what is behind you. God is calling you to something greater, but you must be willing to let go of what is no longer meant for you. Forgiveness is part of letting go. Some people are holding on to anger, bitterness, and resentment, thinking that it protects them. But in reality, it only weighs them down. Forgiveness does not mean excusing what happened. It does not mean what was done to you was right. It means you are no longer letting it control you. It means you are releasing it into God's hands and choosing peace instead. Fear is another thing we must let go of. Fear paralyzes. It keeps people stuck. It whispers lies that say, what if things go wrong? Or what if you fail? But when you let go and trust God, you start living in faith instead of fear. You stop worrying about every possible outcome and start believing that whatever happens, God is in control. Letting go also means trusting God's timing. So many people are frustrated because things are not happening as quickly as they want. They pray and wait, but they do not see immediate results. They start to doubt, start to question, start to take matters into their own hands. But rushing ahead of God only leads to unnecessary pain. His timing is perfect. His ways are higher. What may feel like a delay is often God's way of preparing something better. So today, ask yourself, what are you holding on to that God is asking you to release? Is it worry? Is it control? Is it your past? Is it fear? Whatever it is, lay it down. Give it to Him. Stop carrying a burden that was never yours to carry. The moment you let go is the moment you step into true freedom. Let go and let God. He is in control. He knows what He is doing. And when you trust Him fully, you will find a peace that cannot be shaken. There comes a point in life when you must decide, will you continue to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, or will you surrender it to the one who holds the universe in His hands? The path to peace, to growth, to true strength is not found in striving, in speaking loudly, or in trying to control every outcome. It is found in stillness and trust, in letting go and allowing God to work in His perfect way. Your growth is your responsibility, but it begins when you stop seeking validation from the world and start focusing on the person God created you to be. True strength is found not in noise, but in silence and the ability to move in faith without announcing every step. God does His greatest work in the quiet, in the moments when everything seems still, in the seasons of waiting when it feels like nothing is happening. And above all, peace is found when you let go, when you stop grasping for control, and when you fully trust that God is leading you exactly where you need to be. So today, step away from the noise. Stop trying to prove yourself to people who will never understand your purpose. Stop worrying about things you cannot change. Stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. Instead, move forward in faith. Focus on your journey. Trust the process. And know that when you surrender, when you release everything into God's hands, He will take you further than you ever imagined. Let go. Let God. And watch as He works in ways beyond what you can see, beyond what you can understand, beyond what you ever thought possible. Because His plans are greater, His timing is perfect, and His power is made perfect in those who trust Him fully.